Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Shelton, and today we are going to revisit our salt dough or our Play-Doh projects that we made last week. So since last week, you should have created something out of your salt dough. So I created this heart out of my salt dough, and I created this little bowl, which ended up collapsing a little bit when I baked it. And then you should have baked it. We talked about putting it in the oven for about 2 hours at 200 degrees, and now it's hard. So I baked mine, and what I'm going to do today is I am going to show you some different ways to decorate yours. So I have 2 different types of paint. So I am back at school in my art room, so I have some more supplies. And I have some tempera paint that comes in a container like this. So I have a few colors here that I'm going to use. And then I also have some watercolor paint, which if you guys got the art kits from the school, you should all have some of this type of paint in your art kit. And I also have some different types of markers. So you can use any of these items to decorate your clay creation. So I'm going to start with my heart, and I'm going to use some of this paint. Now, before I start to use this paint, I'm going to need a little cup of water because I'm going to need to wash my brush in between each color. And I also have a little piece of paper towel here so I can wipe my brush off to clean it off. So I'm going to start with my reddish pink color, and I put it in this little container. This is really just a container from cottage cheese. That way it's easy to wash, or if I want, I can even throw it away when I'm done. So I use these containers for a lot of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint part of my heart like this. I'm dipping, painting my heart. And I might not want to paint the whole thing the same color. Sorry, there's some screaming outside my window because the playground is outside my window and the kids are back out playing. So you guys might hear that. Okay, so I've painted half of this with this color, and I would like to switch colors. I can even get the edges here. You can kind of decorate it how you want. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to clean my brush off. I'm going to rinse it really well in my water. So I'm going to rinse, rinse, rinse. After I'm done rinsing, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dry my brush off. So I can now switch to my purple paint. I have a new container that has some purple in it, and I just have a little tiny bit in the bottom in case I don't use it all. I don't want to be wasteful, and I don't want it to dry out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the other half of my heart with the purple paint. This paint doesn't cover super well, so a lot of my white is kind of shining through. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cover this really well. You can go back later after it dries and you can add another coat if you want your paint to be darker. That's up to you. You can use as many colors as you want or as many colors as you have. I'm going to go ahead and paint. You can use your watercolor paint on this as well. The colors are just going to be much lighter with the watercolor paint. And again, some problem-solving techniques with your watercolor paint is you can paint on here, let it dry, come back and visit it later. If you have a hair dryer at your house, you can gently dry it with the hair dryer to speed up the drying process and come back and add another layer. So I'm going to kind of let this sit a little bit. This is some fun metallic colored paint, so it's kind of pink and so it looks shiny. And I'm going to give that a second to dry. So now I have my bowl, and let's say you didn't have any colors, or I'm sorry, any paint at home. You could use markers. So I'm going to kind of design this one with a marker. And yes, I had a little problem-solving technique. I think I had too much. I added a little bit of oil to my clay, and I think it got like too goopy, and the bowl collapsed. So it's not super deep. So I'm going to go ahead, and for this one, I'm going to use markers. And the marker will color right on this. So if you look, you can just kind of color this section with the marker. Let me go all the way to the edge. Like this. Once I'm done, I might want to do a pattern around my edge, so I have a section like this. I'm gonna get the bottom really good, so I have an edge like that. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to color a section in here. So it's not super smooth, the clay, so you're gonna have to go in and get into like all these little crevices of the clay and color that in. Takes a little bit more work with the markers, but it's doable. Okay, so you can do something like that. Now the good thing with markers is that you can color on top of another color pretty quick. You don't necessarily have to wait for it to dry too much. So like, let's say I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to add polka dots or something right on top. I could do that, where with the paint, it's gonna take more. So I did something like that. So you could add all different types of designs. So that's how that works. I'll show you on the other side how to use the watercolor paint. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna dip into the watercolor. Always wash your brush in between colors. You don't wanna mix them. If your colors mix, they end up turning a mud color. Mud is not a very beautiful color. So I can take this. This is my watercolor, and this is actually working pretty well. It's covering pretty well. You don't want to get too much water or it's going to be very drippy. Okay. Again, if I want to switch my color, before I switch my color, I'm going to wash my brush. I'm going to dip it into a new color. Try blue this time. So there you go. You can kind of go over it like that. So on this side, I've used the marker. On this side, I tested the watercolor. On this one, I've used the tempera paint that I have. Now it's starting to dry, so I'm going to kind of experiment a little bit here, and I'm going to dip this into some of my watercolor that happens to be black. And I can go ahead and I can make some designs on this. So if you see, so I'm actually combining the two types of paints. You guys can add different designs like this, patterns. Okay, so I did some designs on this side. Now I'm going to go over to the other side. Maybe I'll test the dark blue on this one. Okay, and I might do something like this. Okay. So you guys can go ahead and experiment with your different supplies. Again, I've done some with the marker. I've done some with the tempera paint. I've done some with this. If you have acrylic paints at your house, please, please, please get your parents' permission. Acrylic paints stain. They do not wash off super easy. So once it's dried on your clothes or it's dried on your hands, it's hard to get off. So please make sure you get parent permission if you happen to have that kind of acrylic craft paint at your house. Otherwise, if you use this kind of paint, this Crayola paint, it washes really easy because it's watercolor. Marker is going to wash off your hands really easy and off of your clothing, or if you get it on the table. And then tempera paint washes really easy too. When you're done, don't forget to wash out your brushes. Don't let your paints dry in your brushes because you don't want them to get ruined. So I'm going to rinse mine out really, really well in my water. And when I'm done, I'm going to dry my brushes off really well because I don't want any of that paint stuck in my brushes. I don't want it ruining my art supplies. So good luck, have fun. Don't forget to submit your project so I can see what you guys created. And let me see some super fun designs. So here's my heart and my bowl again. Let me see what kind of creative supplies that you guys have. And good luck. Have fun.